Hey everybody, welcome to the Cook Along Live pregame show. My name is Robert. I'll be your host tonight. Tonight we're going to be getting ready for our Sunday Cook Along Live. It's Friday night tonight. We're going to be making a pizza dough from scratch. It's only got 4 ingredients: 415 grams of bread flour, 9 grams of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast, and 270 grams of water. Now, if you have a scale that is sensitive enough to go down to 1 gram, that's how much active dry yeast you should be using. It's just a little bit less than 1/4 teaspoon. So if you use 1/4 teaspoon, you will get about the right amount, and it shouldn't really make that big of a difference. This recipe for the dough I got from Chef Steps, which is an awesome website. They are actually one of the first websites that got me into sous vide cooking. So if you guys are interested in a sous vide pump, go and check them out. They've got some really cool recipes. Cool, let's get started. Our water, we want to be just a little bit warmer than room temperature. It should be comfortable if you stick your finger in it. It should be around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pour our yeast into that. Just kind of let it sit for a second and then stir it in. I'll set that to the side. Let me grab a spoon. And then what we'll do is we'll just kind of give this a little mix. Switch over to our top-down camera there. You can see the water's getting cloudy. That's the yeast mixing in, kind of dissolving with the water. And what we're doing with the warmer water is it's actually activating the yeast, kind of bringing it back to life. That's awesome. We're just going to set that to the side. Next step, we're going to take our flour, and I'm actually going to pour the 415 grams of flour into my mixing bowl or my mixer. You can use a stand mixer. You can use just a normal mixer, like a hand mixer if you want. I'm going to recommend a stand mixer because it's got the dough attachment, and this will make your life a hell of a lot easier when you're kneading out this dough. We're just going to pour our flour in, like so. And we're also going to add our salt to the flour. 9 grams of salt. We're going to give this a nice little stir. Get that salt incorporated into the flour. If you have a whisk, you can use that as well, but I just want to keep as few things dirty as possible. We're going to go ahead and make a little well in the center of our flour here. We're going to pour our yeast water mixture right into the middle. And we're going to give this a kind of initial stir. Go ahead and push the flour into the center. Just be really kind of quick about it. I'm going to try and keep the flour from sticking to the spoon as best we can, but it doesn't matter, it's still going to stick. We're just going to kind of get this mixed up until it's just coming together into kind of a rough ball, scrape down the sides. Essentially what we don't want is we don't want flour caked on the sides of the bowl. So by kind of pre-mixing it like this, you're getting the water incorporated into more of the flour before getting it onto the mixer. So you're less likely to have like smears of flour up the side of the bowl. I'm using a wooden spoon. You can use a metal spoon if you want, but my metal spoons bend when I start doing this kind of mixing. So for me, the wooden spoon works a little bit better. All right, there we go. I'm just going to scrape off any kind of extra stuck on flour here. Use the side of the bowl, use the spoon from your yeast if you want. We'll just get that all kind of scraped off. Back into the bowl. And now what we will do is we'll put it on our stand mixer. And we'll let this kind of mix for about 5 minutes until the dough is no longer sticking to the sides of the bowl. There we go. And we'll just put it on like medium. And raise your bowl first. We'll just let this knead everything together. So I'll be back with you once that's done. Welcome back. Our dough is done being kneaded, so we're going to go ahead and unhook. I'll get this thing separated from the dough. Just kind of use your fingers to kind of squeeze it down. You can put a little flour on your fingers if you don't want the dough to stick. And then we're going to liberally dust our work surface with flour. And we're going to go ahead and turn our dough out onto the surface. That basically means using your fingers like a scoop and just scooping everything out from the mixing bowl. If you have a plastic dough scraper, like one of these, it might help you because you can kind of scoop the dough off of the sides and down onto the work surface. That's good. So now at this point, we're just going to give it a quick knead on the work surface to kind of shape it correctly. And all I'm doing is kind of pushing it into itself. Just kind of using all of the dough on the surface as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to shape it into a little ball. We're going to put it into a container and we're going to let it ferment at room temperature, covered. We're going to let it ferment for quite a while actually. So it's going to be about 5 to 8 hours, depends on how much time you have. In my case, I'm going to let it go for the shorter end. So if you can, get this started like the morning before, and you can let it ferment a little bit longer. So I'm going to shape this into a little ball, and all I'm going to do is let the weight of the flour or the weight of the dough kind of shape it for me, and just kind of use my fingers to fingers in the sides of my hand to kind of keep it going into its shape. So something like that, and then you can use the cutting board itself to kind of roll it around into a little ball. And this is how you make a nice little supple ball of dough. So like I said, this is going to go into our little container here, like so. No oil or anything, it's just going to sit in there. We're going to cover this bad boy. And I will see you in just a few seconds, but for me it'll be 5 to 8 hours later. Hello again, we're back, and 6 hours have passed. We're gonna go ahead and dust our cutting board or work surface, whatever you're using, very well again. The dough might have gotten a little bit more tacky since it's had a time to kind of sit. So you wanna make sure you got plenty of flour down there. Ooh, and it did grow quite a bit. Love that. So, go ahead and grab one of our flexible dough scrapers. We're going to go ahead and just scrape this out onto the work surface. You'll notice that it is actually pretty sticky. So what I'm going to do is just make sure to get cutting board nice and floury. You don't want it sticking. Same with whatever work surface you're using. Now, it's okay if you deflate the dough a little bit. Go ahead and get our We're just going to go ahead and scrape this out. And kind of turn it out onto our floured surface. Like so. And give this one little kind of dusting, if you will, on the outside. And I want a scale. You don't necessarily need to use a scale. You can just kind of eyeball it if you want. But what I am looking for is 230 gram-ish pieces of dough. So I'm going to go ahead and get some aluminum foil on here. Let's turn it on. Make sure that it's in grams, which it is, and it's zeroed out. So what I'm going to do is try and kind of eyeball 3 equal-sized pieces. That'll be something like probably that. It's a little bit too big. There we go, 236 grams, so that's pretty good. Gonna set him aside. And then out of these 2 pieces, again, try and grab about 230 grams per. They don't have to be perfect, it's just to make sure that you get, you're gonna have 3 pizzas out of this, 3 doughs, and they're all gonna be about the same size. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our hands floured so they don't stick to the dough. And then we're just going to shape these into little balls. Basically just kind of fold them over on themselves, very similar to like what we did with the larger ball. And then you just kind of want to tuck the outside of the ball with the edge of your hand kind of up and under like so. And what you're doing is you're actually creating surface tension on the outside of the dough. So as your kind of hand is sticking slightly and you're pulling it up and under, you're increasing the surface tension on the top of the dough, and that actually helps it maintain its shape and not flatten out so much. Although since you're making pizza, it doesn't really matter, but this just keeps it nice and uniform. You'll also notice that some of these bubbles are kind of coming up to the surface. You don't have to poke them. I would just leave them and let the dough kind of do what it's going to do. If you have any like super gigantic ones, you can go ahead and just kind of pop them, but you got just the small ones, don't worry too much. They don't do too much to do anything bad to the dough. There's one. I'm going to set him on the side. I'm going to reflour my hands again to work on the next one. And it's just going to be a lot of the same. I'm going to kind of roll it around like so, folding it in on itself with my fingers, and then using the outside of my hand to kind of tuck everything up and under. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use just a little bit of olive oil on our hands, and we're going to kind of coat these in olive oil and give them one final little roll. And what that's going to do is kind of help them retain moisture. Because we're going to let them sit in the fridge overnight. So this is a long-form dough recipe, which is awesome. Although, yes, it does take a little bit of time and kind of a little bit of pre-planning. We do want to kind of spin them together like so. And again, this will kind of get all of the bubbles worked out of the dough and then up. And you can just kind of pinch them out there. making a little dumpling. You don't want like a huge coating of oil on these. You just want to kind of give them a nice light little coat. And I'm actually going to put them right, probably don't want to use that. Where else can I put them? Let's see. Nice little kind of twist like so. That'll get a lot of the bubbles out. Set him over there. I'll do the same with you. A little bit more oil. Not much oil, maybe like a 1/4 teaspoon. Maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. Just enough to kind of coat the outside of the dough. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'll leave that there so I can use it. I'm actually gonna use my large lasagna tray and set these guys in the tray. I just want to give them enough space so that if they grow overnight, they don't merge into each other. Now, this isn't like a 24-hour thing. You can just let them go for another 8 to 10 hours. But, you know, if you start your dough at noon and you get your dough ready by, I don't know, say 1 o'clock, let them sit for 5 hours. It'll be 6. Takes about 15 minutes to get this set up, and then just leave them overnight. You can leave them in the fridge for up to 3 days before using. So if you know that you guys are going to have a pizza night, go ahead and get this prepped, you know, like on a Thursday if you're doing it on Saturday, and then you don't have to worry about it. It's not a lot of work, it's just time. You're just letting them sit and kind of ferment, and that's really kind of why breads are so difficult to do in this kind of a format. It's really hard to do a cook-along live when you're working with bread or dough, because a lot of times you're just waiting for it to rise. So that's why we're trying this format out. We'll see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and get these guys covered, put in the fridge, and I will see you all on Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, and we will get to cooking some pizzas. We'll make the sauce, we'll get some toppings ready, and we'll get them baked. And I'll show you how to get a really nice, thin, crispy crust on your pizzas. So y'all have a great evening, great rest of your day, and I will see you on Sunday.